If you're over 60, there's one everyday movement that might seem healthy, even harmless, but it could quietly raise your risk of a stroke overnight. No pain, no warning, no second chance. You could go to bed feeling fine and wake up unable to speak, move your arm, or recognize your own family. As a brain doctor, I've spent over 30 years treating stroke victims, but the cases that haunt me most aren't caused by smoking or bad diets. They come from something much more unexpected: common exercises. The very stretches, routines, and senior safe workouts you've been told will help you age gracefully. Some of them, when done at the wrong time or in the wrong way, can overload your blood vessels, spike your blood pressure, and form clots that strike your brain in the dead of night. Today, I'm going to walk you through 9 common exercises that might be putting your brain at risk, even if you feel strong, even if you think you're doing everything right. Because at this stage of life, what used to be healthy might now be dangerous. Stick with me. This could be the most important health message you hear all year. It might even save your life. Before we dive in, if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you hit that button and turn on the bell so you never miss another health tip made just for you. If you enjoy this video, type 1 in the comments. If not, type 0 to let me know how I can make better content for you. 1. Toe touches and forward bends. Sudden drop in blood pressure. It seems harmless, even healthy. Bending forward to stretch your back or legs, touching your toes before bed, or picking up a laundry basket from the floor. For decades, you've done this motion without a second thought. But what if I told you that this one simple, everyday movement, when done at the wrong time, in the wrong body, could quietly tip your brain toward a stroke? As a brain doctor who has spent years treating older adults, I've seen it more times than I care to count. A slow, unnoticed change in blood pressure when bending forward becomes the silent trigger for a dangerous chain reaction in the brain. For younger adults, the body adapts easily to shifts in posture. But past 60, the sensors in your arteries that control blood flow to the brain, called baroreceptors, lose their sensitivity. That means when you bend over quickly, blood rushes away from your brain, and your body doesn't react in time to bring it back. You may feel a little lightheaded. You may feel nothing at all. But inside, something much more serious may be happening. When blood flow drops suddenly and frequently, like when you're doing repeated forward bends or toe touches, the brain becomes starved for oxygen. This drop doesn't always cause a blackout, but it sets up the conditions for something worse: thickened blood, slowed circulation, and in some cases, the formation of clots. It forms blood clots. And when one of those tiny clots finds its way into a narrowed artery deep inside your brain, the results can be devastating. Speech loss, vision changes, balance issues, or, in the worst cases, permanent paralysis. Let me tell you about a patient I will never forget, Mr. Edward Millstone, age 74, a retired high school history teacher from Nebraska. Edward was active and alert, proud of stretching every morning to stay flexible. Each day after getting out of bed, he would stand up, reach down, and touch his toes 5 or 6 times, something he'd done since he was a boy. He said it made him feel young. One morning, after his usual stretch, he felt a little dizzy but shook it off. A few hours later, while gardening, he collapsed in the backyard. He was conscious but couldn't move his right arm or leg. When he arrived at the hospital, the CT scan showed a small ischemic stroke. A clot had blocked blood flow to the motor area of his brain. Labs showed his blood was dehydrated and his pressure had dropped earlier that morning. We traced it back to those toe touches. His aging vascular system couldn't keep up with the postural shift. His blood got sluggish, and a clot formed quietly, without warning. Edward eventually regained his ability to walk with a cane, but his right hand never fully recovered. He told me later, with tears in his eyes, I thought stretching was saving me, but it nearly ended me. This is the truth so many seniors never hear. It's not about stopping movement, it's about understanding what your aging body can no longer do in the same way. A bend that felt good at 40 may be dangerous at 70, especially if you're on medications for blood pressure or if you're waking up dehydrated, which most seniors are. If you must bend down, always rise slowly, breathe deeply, and consider sitting in a chair to put on socks or shoes rather than bending from a standing position. If you ever feel dizzy during these movements, stop immediately. That is not a minor symptom. That is your brain whispering a warning. Because here's the reality: the most dangerous stroke isn't the one that comes with a bang, it's the one that builds quietly. From one routine motion done too fast, too often, and too long for a brain that's no longer 30. And if a simple stretch can send your brain into crisis, what about the relaxing yoga pose that shifts blood directly into your skull? You won't believe what I'm about to share next. Let's talk about the deadly pressure that builds during inversion yoga and how it nearly cost one grandmother her eyesight and speech overnight. If you're still watching and finding these insights helpful, please comment number 1 below to let me know you're with me. Now let's move on to point number 2. 2. Inverted yoga poses, brain pressure imbalance. For many older adults, yoga has become a symbol of graceful aging, a way to stretch, breathe, and stay calm in a noisy world. You've probably seen it at your local senior center: rows of folks in chairs, breathing deeply, guided by a soft spoken instructor. And for the most part, gentle yoga can be a beautiful thing. But there's one category of poses that could quietly put your brain at serious risk, and most seniors are never warned about it. I'm talking about inverted poses, like legs up the wall, downward dog, or even simple forward folds where the head dips below the heart. These movements, while often marketed as relaxing or rejuvenating, can cause a rapid and dangerous shift in blood flow toward the brain, especially in people over 60. And when that surge of pressure hits aging blood vessels, ones that may already be stiff, inflamed, or weakened by years of high blood pressure or cholesterol, it can cause those vessels to swell, rupture, or spasm. You see, as we get older, our cerebral autoregulation system, the brain's built in pressure valve, doesn't work as efficiently. In a younger person, the body compensates for sudden shifts in position. But in an older adult, even just tilting the head downward for a few minutes can allow blood to pool, pressure to spike, and oxygen flow to become unstable. Combine that with a history of hypertension, a hidden aneurysm, or certain blood pressure medications, and the result can be catastrophic. It forms blood clots in the most delicate areas of the brain. Let me share a patient story that still haunts me to this day. Her name was Mrs. Evelyn Thomas, 74 years old, a retired art teacher from Oregon. She was active, kind, and full of life. Every Tuesday and Thursday, she joined a local gentle yoga for seniors class. She told me she loved the calm music, the community, and how it helped her feel young again. But one morning, during a pose where participants lifted their legs against the wall and rested their heads downward, Evelyn suddenly felt a sharp pain behind her eyes. She brushed it off, finished class, and went home to rest. That night, Evelyn's daughter found her collapsed beside the bed, confused and unable to speak. At the hospital, scans revealed a small hemorrhagic stroke in the posterior portion of her brain, a rare but devastating bleed often triggered by a spike in cranial pressure. Her blood pressure medications, combined with the inverted pose, had created the perfect conditions. Vessel walls strained, blood pressure fluctuated, and a clot formed and ruptured in a space her body couldn't recover from quickly. Evelyn survived, but not without cost. Her vision is permanently blurred on the left side, and she struggles to find words during conversations. A woman once known for her creativity and wit now has to write reminders to herself just to get through the day. And the tragedy? It was preventable. No one had ever warned her that these poses, though labeled safe for seniors, might not be safe for someone with her medical history. The instructor wasn't trained in geriatric care, and Evelyn, like so many others, believed if it's gentle yoga, it must be harmless. But age changes the rules. The arteries feeding your brain are no longer elastic hoses. They're more like fragile garden hoses that can burst or clog with even the smallest shift in pressure. And when blood pools in the wrong area, or when circulation slows in a tight position, your body does what it's designed to do. It forms blood clots. It tries to protect you, but in the wrong vessel, that protection becomes the very thing that can steal your independence or even your life. So what can you do? If you practice yoga, ask your instructor if they have specific training for older adults, especially those with cardiovascular or neurological conditions. Avoid any pose that puts your head significantly below your heart. Skip the inversions altogether. There are safer, seated alternatives that offer the same benefits without the risk. And if you ever feel lightheaded, pulsing behind your eyes, or a deep sense of fatigue after yoga, listen to your body. It's not being dramatic. It's giving you a warning. Because the reality is this: sometimes what feels good isn't good for you, especially now. And if you think inverted poses are the only hidden risk in your workout, wait until I tell you about a far more common activity, something as routine as lifting a grocery bag or carrying a laundry basket that can spike your blood pressure in seconds and tear the lining of your blood vessels without you even feeling it. The next exercise might seem harmless, but it could be quietly setting off a chain reaction that ends in a stroke. Let's talk about lifting, and why it's not just about how much you carry, but how you carry it. 3. Heavy lifting, even grocery bags. Blood pressure spikes. There's something noble about staying strong in your golden years. Carrying your own groceries, lifting grandkids, moving a box of books without asking for help. It makes you feel capable, independent, alive. But what most older adults don't realize is that even small acts of lifting, especially if you hold your breath or strain, can send your blood pressure skyrocketing in seconds, creating the perfect storm inside your body for a stroke. You don't have to lift a barbell at the gym to be in danger. I've seen strokes triggered by nothing more than moving a garden hose, lifting a heavy purse, or helping a neighbor with a laundry basket. It's not the weight itself that's the problem. It's the sudden internal pressure you create when you strain. It's called the Valsalva maneuver, when you unconsciously hold your breath while lifting. And it causes a rapid surge in blood pressure, increases pressure inside the chest and brain, and can disrupt circulation in critical arteries. For an aging body, where arteries may already be narrowed, stiffened by plaque, or weakened by years of hypertension or diabetes, this surge can be deadly. The vessel walls may crack, or a hidden clot may break loose, travel upstream, and block oxygen to your brain. It doesn't take long, just seconds, and you may not even feel it until the damage is already done. Let me tell you about Mr. George Pickett, age 82, a retired firefighter from Ohio. He was strong, proud, and fiercely independent. He believed in staying active and always insisted on helping his wife unload the car. One afternoon, he lifted a heavy box of canned goods, nothing out of the ordinary. But this time, something changed. He paused mid-lift, clutched his head, and collapsed. When he arrived at the ER, he couldn't move the right side of his body or speak clearly. His scans showed an ischemic stroke caused by a clot lodged in the middle cerebral artery. one of the brain's most vital highways. His blood pressure had spiked suddenly during the lift, and that pressure dislodged plaque that had built up silently over the years. The moment of strength he was proud of became the moment that altered his life forever. George now relies on a walker, and though his mind remains sharp, his speech is labored and slow. This is the quiet danger no one warns you about. You're told to stay strong, to keep moving, but no one tells you what happens when the movement is too much, too fast, or too unbalanced for the body you now live in. You don't have the same margin for error you once did. Every breath, every lift, every ounce of pressure on your arteries matters now more than ever. So if you're lifting and holding your breath, stop. That's your warning sign. If you feel dizzy, lightheaded, or tense across your chest or neck afterward, that's not just fatigue. It could be a stroke forming before your eyes. Lift smaller loads. Ask for help. Use carts, tools, leverage. You don't lose independence by being cautious. You protect it. And remember, stroke doesn't always feel like pain. Sometimes it feels like nothing at all, until the damage has already stolen your words, your balance, or your tomorrow. But if lifting a simple box can threaten your brain, what happens when your own body turns against you the moment you stand up? Coming up next, we'll talk about a common exercise done in senior homes across the country that can quietly rob your brain of oxygen in just seconds. And the worst part, you've probably done it today without even realizing it. If you're still watching and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 1 below to let me know you're here. Now let's keep going with point number 4. 4. Sudden standing exercises, from sit to stand too fast. It's one of the simplest movements we make every day. Standing up from a chair, we do it dozens of times. After reading the newspaper, finishing a meal, or getting up to answer the phone. For seniors, it's even encouraged in many balance and mobility programs. Practice getting up and down without using your hands, they say. But what no one tells you is this. Standing up too quickly, especially without support, can quietly trigger the very stroke you're trying to avoid. Why? Because the moment you stand, gravity pulls blood away from your head and toward your legs. For a younger person, the body reacts quickly, tightening blood vessels and increasing heart rate to push blood back up to the brain. But after age 60, this automatic response becomes slower, weaker, and sometimes fails entirely. That's especially true if you have high blood pressure, diabetes, take medications like beta blockers or diuretics, or suffer from even mild dehydration, which many seniors do without realizing. When you rise suddenly, your brain may not get enough blood fast enough. The result is a dangerous moment of low oxygen. And if your vessels are already narrowed or inflamed, it forms blood clots that can lodge in fragile cerebral arteries. You don't need to faint for this to happen. You may just feel a little dizzy or off for a few seconds. But in that small window, a stroke can begin to form, silently, invisibly. One of my patients, Mrs. Carol Jensen, 79, was a retired school principal living in Arizona. Active, witty, and determined to stay healthy, Carol had taken the advice of her physical therapist to practice repeated sit-to-stand drills, rising from her kitchen chair without using her hands. She did it 5 times in a row, each time faster than the last. "It's good for your balance," she'd heard. But one morning, after a quick session while her husband brewed coffee, she stood up fast and reached for the counter and then paused. "I feel strange," she told him. Within seconds, her right side had gone weak and she struggled to speak. At the hospital, scans showed she had suffered a left-sided ischemic stroke caused by a clot in her middle cerebral artery. Her labs also showed signs of vascular inflammation and low morning hydration. She had no idea that something as simple and encouraged as standing too fast had triggered the most frightening moment of her life. Today, Carol can walk with a cane, but struggles with speech and memory, and all because she stood up too quickly. This story isn't rare. In fact, in emergency rooms across the country, we regularly see strokes that began this way, not with trauma, not with unhealthy habits, but with a well-meaning exercise that didn't match the body's current reality. You see, aging changes how your blood vessels react, how quickly your brain can rebalance pressure, and how vulnerable your oxygen supply becomes. The body you had at 40 is not the body you have now. And that's not failure. That's nature. But pretending it's still the same, that's the risk. So here's what I want you to remember. Never rise without support. Pause for a moment when you stand. Use the arms of a chair if needed. Take a breath. Let your brain catch up before you move. And if you ever feel dizzy after standing, that's not aging. That's your brain warning you. Because in this chapter of life, speed can be the enemy. And rushing from one position to another might cost you your clarity, your independence, even your ability to say your own name. But what if I told you that even walking, the most recommended, most trusted exercise for seniors, could quietly be harming your brain, especially in warm weather? Coming up next, we'll talk about how a daily walk in the wrong conditions could leave your brain dry, your blood thick, and your body vulnerable to a stroke before sunrise. 5. Walking in heat or humidity. Dehydration plus blood thickening. There's something deeply comforting about a walk. For many older adults, it's a cherished daily ritual, walking after breakfast to hear the birds, or in the afternoon to get fresh air and stretch the legs. Doctors recommend it. Wellness programs encourage it. And in truth, walking can be one of the best exercises for brain and heart health. But like so many things in later life, context changes everything. And one of the most dangerous mistakes I see my older patients make is this: walking in hot, humid conditions without proper hydration or awareness. On the surface, it feels harmless. You step outside on a warm summer morning, the sun is gentle, the breeze is soft, but what your body feels and what your brain is experiencing are not always the same, especially after age 60. As we age, our body's thirst response dulls. We don't feel thirsty until we're already dehydrated. Add in blood pressure medications, diuretics, or conditions like heart failure or diabetes, and your ability to regulate fluids is significantly impaired. So here's what happens. You take a walk, you sweat, even lightly, and you don't replace that fluid. Your blood volume shrinks, your circulation slows, and what was once thin, flowing blood becomes thicker, more concentrated. In medical terms, this is called hemoconcentration. And for an aging body with narrowed or stiffened arteries, this is where it begins. Your blood becomes sticky, your vessels tense, and it forms blood clots in the very places you least want them, in the arteries that feed your brain. Let me tell you about a man I treated not long ago, Mr. Harold Dunn, age 84, a retired postal worker from Kentucky. Harold was disciplined about his health. Every day after lunch, he'd take a long walk around his neighborhood. It was his way of staying young. But in July, the humidity climbed and the temperatures lingered in the 90s. Harold didn't change his routine. "I'm used to it," he told his wife. But one morning, after a particularly hot walk the day before, Harold woke up confused. He tried to stand and immediately collapsed. At the hospital, his speech was slurred and his right arm wouldn't move. The scans confirmed it. He'd suffered a left-sided ischemic stroke, likely caused by a clot that formed overnight in the setting of dehydration and slowed circulation. Blood work showed elevated hemoglobin concentration. His blood had thickened. He hadn't had enough fluids. He hadn't replenished electrolytes. He thought walking made him stronger. But in truth, That walk in the heat, combined with mild dehydration and his water pill for blood pressure, had set the conditions for disaster. Harold survived, but he no longer walks without assistance. He still asks me why no one told him that walking could be dangerous if done at the wrong time. And I tell him, just as I'll tell you, it's not the walk that hurts, it's the conditions. It's the hidden changes inside your aging body that turn something good into something deadly. So please, if you're going out to walk, and especially in summer, drink water before and after. Add a pinch of salt or sip coconut water to maintain electrolytes. Avoid walking in peak heat or high humidity. If you feel tired, dry-mouthed, or dizzy afterward, that's not just aging. That's your blood sending warning signals. Because the truth is, you can fall asleep after a walk feeling proud and wake up unable to speak, move, or remember your loved one's face. That's how silently stroke can steal from us when we don't listen to the quiet messages our bodies are sending. And if the summer heat can do this, imagine what could happen from a movement we do without thinking. Something as innocent as rolling your neck or stretching your spine, but which, under the wrong conditions, could tear open the very arteries feeding your brain. Coming up next, we're going to talk about a subtle motion that millions of seniors do daily, and why it might be the very move that cracks your lifeline. 6. Neck circles or jerky neck rotations, artery tear risk. It's one of the most common stretches seniors are told to do. Loosen up your neck, they say. So you tilt your head side to side, maybe even make a gentle circle with your chin. It feels harmless, even soothing. You've probably done it after waking up stiff or sitting too long. But what no one ever warned you, and what I've seen far too many patients suffer from, is that this one seemingly innocent movement can cause a tear inside one of the most delicate and vital arteries in your body, the vertebral artery. And for someone over 60, that tear may be all it takes to trigger a life-altering stroke. The vertebral arteries are tucked deep within your neck. They wind through small openings in your spinal bones, feeding the back of your brain, the area responsible for balance, coordination, and even consciousness. These arteries aren't designed to stretch or twist too far. Yet every time you roll your neck in a full circle, especially with force or speed, you're pulling on those vessels like taffy. Over time, or sometimes with just one wrong movement, that stretch can cause a small tear in the inner wall of the artery. Your body, trying to repair the damage, immediately responds by forming a clot at the site of the injury. And that's where the danger truly begins. Because if that clot dislodges, even partially, it forms blood clots that can travel upward directly into the brainstem. The result? A posterior circulation stroke, one of the hardest to detect and often the most devastating. I remember one case vividly. Mr. Dennis Lyle, 72, a retired school band director from Michigan. A kind man, active in his church choir, always looking for ways to keep his body limber. He'd read in a senior magazine that neck rolls were good for posture. So each morning, after brushing his teeth, he'd slowly rotate his neck, clockwise, then counterclockwise. One morning, midway through the second circle, he felt a sharp pain behind his ear. Then came dizziness. Moments later, he collapsed in his hallway. By the time paramedics arrived, Dennis couldn't speak clearly. He'd lost coordination and vomited twice en route to the hospital. Scans confirmed a dissection of the left vertebral artery, the medical term for the tear, and an acute stroke near the cerebellum. The clot had traveled just as I feared. Today, Dennis uses a wheelchair. He still plays piano, slowly, carefully, but he tells me he had no idea that a movement so gentle could change his life forever. And that's the danger. These aren't dramatic injuries. There's no warning bell. You might just feel a pop, a moment of nausea, or a strange wave of dizziness. and by then, the damage may already be done. As we age, the tissues in our blood vessels become less elastic. Medications like blood thinners or statins can make the walls more fragile. A neck movement you did at 40 without blinking could become life-threatening at 70. So here's what I need every senior to understand. Stop doing full neck circles. Avoid fast or jerky turns. Never stretch your neck to its limit. Instead, gently turn your head side to side within a natural range, slowly and always with support if you feel unsteady. If you ever feel dizzy, lightheaded, or hear a sudden snap or click in your neck during movement, stop immediately and get checked. Your neck is not just a bridge for posture, it's a lifeline for blood to your brain. Protect it like your life depends on it, because it does. And if something this gentle could silently tear open an artery, what do you think might happen when you push your heart to its limit with short bursts of intense activity? Up next, we'll look at a popular exercise trend sweeping across senior centers and fitness apps, and why it may be doing more harm to your brain than anyone realizes. If you're still watching and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 1 below to let me know you're here. Now, let's keep going with point number 7. 7. High-intensity interval training, HIIT, vascular overload. There's a new trend sweeping through senior fitness centers, YouTube videos, and even Medicare-sponsored wellness programs, high-intensity interval training, or HIIT. It's marketed as a time-saving miracle, short bursts of exercise followed by quick rest periods said to improve heart health, burn fat, and keep your metabolism young. But here's what the advertisements won't tell you. For older adults, especially those over 60, HIIT can quietly push your cardiovascular system beyond its limit, putting you at real risk for stroke, heart rhythm disturbances, and permanent brain injury. On paper, the concept sounds promising. 30 seconds of fast-paced activity, like marching in place, squatting quickly, or doing modified jumping jacks, followed by a brief rest, then repeat. But for aging arteries, stiffened vessels, and a heart that may already be fighting hidden hypertension, diabetes, or years of medication, this style of training is a dangerous gamble. You see, during each intensity burst, your heart rate spikes, your blood pressure surges, and your vascular system is forced to expand and contract rapidly. In younger bodies, this can be tolerated, but in older adults, that sudden pressure can stress the delicate endothelial lining inside your blood vessels, the very layer responsible for smooth circulation. When this layer is overstretched or inflamed, tiny cracks can form, plaque can rupture, and what happens next is what I fear most for my patients. It forms blood clots, clots that can travel, lodge in the brain, and leave you unable to speak, move, or return to the life you once knew. I'll never forget Mr. Donald Whitaker, age 74, a retired steelworker from Pittsburgh. Donald had a strong work ethic, took pride in doing things the right way, and was determined to stay active in retirement. His daughter bought him an exercise DVD designed for seniors with energizing HIIT moves. He began each morning with short rounds of step touches, fast arm raises, and modified burpees. It felt intense, but manageable, until one morning it wasn't. After finishing a 20-minute session, Donald went to make coffee. Within minutes, he became dizzy, dropped his cup, and slumped against the counter. His wife heard the crash and found him unable to speak. At the hospital, a CT scan revealed an ischemic stroke affecting the left side of his brain. His carotid artery, one of the main vessels carrying blood to the brain, had released a clot, likely dislodged during a pressure spike caused by one of his power intervals. His blood vessels, weakened by age and untreated hypertension, simply couldn't adapt fast enough to the strain. Donald survived, but not without consequences. He now lives in an assisted living facility, relies on speech therapy, and struggles with memory gaps that weren't there before. He once told me, "Doc, I thought I was doing what was right. I was just trying to stay young." And that's the tragedy. He was doing what he thought was good, but his body wasn't built for that level of pressure anymore. This is what I need you to understand. Aging doesn't mean you're weak, but it does mean you're different. Your blood vessels are no longer as elastic. Your brain needs steady, consistent oxygen, not surges and droughts. Chai tea might promise youth, but if it overloads your heart and triggers a clot, it can steal your independence in a matter of seconds. If you've been trying HIIT or fast-paced routines and have noticed dizziness, fatigue, or shortness of breath afterward, don't ignore it. That isn't progress, it's a warning. Choose gentler forms of movement. Opt for steady-paced walking, resistance bands, or Tai Chi. Exercises that protect your heart and nourish your brain without the shock. Because in this chapter of life, stability is power, control is health, and sudden intensity is not your friend, it's your risk. And if you think workouts are the only place your body faces this kind of vascular pressure, what if I told you that even stretching, when done at the wrong time, could quietly set the stage for a stroke? Coming up next, we'll uncover how a common pre-exercise habit, stretching before warming up, might be silently weakening your arteries and triggering dangerous vessel reactions you never saw coming. 8. Stretching before warming up, vessel shock. We've been told all our lives that stretching is good for us, that it keeps us limber, improves circulation, and prevents injury. So it's no surprise that many older adults begin their morning routines, golf games, or neighborhood walks with a few long stretches, arms overhead, calves against the wall, reaching for the toes. It seems gentle, even graceful. But for older bodies, stretching before warming up can cause more harm than good. And in some cases, it can quietly trigger the first steps toward a stroke. Let me explain what happens beneath the surface. When your muscles are cold, meaning you haven't walked around or moved yet, your blood vessels are more constricted. The heart is beating slower, and circulation is focused on the core, not the limbs. Suddenly pulling on these muscles through static stretching, especially deep hamstring or shoulder stretches, forces your arteries and connective tissues to expand before they're ready. And in aging bodies, where blood vessels have become stiff, narrowed, or even calcified, that sudden demand can shock the vascular system. The result? A reflexive constriction of the arteries. Blood flow slows. Pressure builds in certain regions while dropping in others. In younger people, the body quickly adapts. But in older adults, especially those with hypertension, diabetes, or prior cardiovascular issues, that mismatch in circulation can be dangerous. When blood flow becomes inconsistent or turbulent, it forms blood clots, especially near weakened vessel linings. And when those clots travel, the brain is often the first place they go. I treated a woman named Mrs. Eileen Granger, 78, a retired piano teacher from Colorado. One morning before her usual neighborhood stroll, she followed a stretching video online, a gentle senior routine, or so it claimed. She held a long forward bend, then followed it with quad stretches and shoulder rolls. She hadn't walked around yet or even drank water. I thought I was being good, she later told me. But halfway through her walk, she felt lightheaded. Her balance shifted. By the time a neighbor noticed something was wrong, Eileen had trouble forming words. She was rushed to the ER, where scans revealed a small ischemic stroke in the left parietal lobe. Her labs showed signs of early morning dehydration and endothelial stress. And based on the timing and sequence of events, we concluded that the pre-walk static stretching had caused a vascular mismatch that allowed a small clot to form and lodge in a critical artery. Eileen recovered slowly. Her memory came back, but she now uses a walker and avoids walking alone. Her stroke didn't come from bad habits. It came from a well meaning routine done in the wrong order, stretching a cold body, forcing blood into vessels before they were prepared. So, what should you take from this? If you're over 60, never begin your day or your workout with static stretching. Instead, warm up first. Walk around your home for 5-10 minutes, swing your arms gently, take deep breaths, let your circulation wake up, let your joints loosen naturally. Stretching is still good, but it must come after your body is ready, not before. Because your muscles aren't the only thing you're stretching. You're stretching arteries, veins, and tissues that feed your brain. And if they crack, clot, or collapse under pressure, you may not even know it until you lose your speech, your balance, or your independence. And if stretching before warming up can quietly harm your brain, just imagine what happens when your sense of balance fails altogether and you fall without warning. In the next section, I'll show you how one of the most overlooked types of exercise, balance training without support, might be placing you one misstep away from the kind of injury your brain may never fully recover from. 9. Balancing exercises without support. Fall stroke loop. Of all the exercises seniors are encouraged to do, balance training often seems the safest. We're told it helps prevent falls, strengthens core muscles, and protects independence. And that's true when done correctly. But what most older adults don't realize is that doing balancing exercises without proper support or supervision can quietly lead to a chain reaction that ends in the hospital, or worse, in a stroke unit. Here's why. As we age, the systems that keep us upright, our inner ear, eyes, muscles, and joints, begin to decline. A small misstep that wouldn't have mattered at 40 can become catastrophic at 75. And while standing on one leg or using a wobble board may sound like a good challenge, doing it alone without holding on to a sturdy object creates a window of danger where one slip or loss of footing can bring you down hard. But the danger doesn't end with the fall. That's only the beginning. When an older adult falls, especially if they hit their head, hip, or spine, the body experiences trauma. In response, it releases stress hormones and inflammatory markers. Blood pressure rises, vessels constrict, and the risk of internal clot formation skyrockets. Even if no bone is broken, the body may begin forming blood clots in response to the sudden trauma. And if one of those clots travels, it can find its way to the brain. That's what we call the fall stroke loop. A fall leads to clotting, and the clot leads to a stroke, sometimes within hours, sometimes overnight. I'll never forget one patient, Mr. Walter Harris, 81, a retired Navy veteran from San Diego. He lived alone, took pride in keeping active, and had watched a balance training video online that encouraged standing on one leg for 30 seconds. He tried it one morning without support. No wall, no chair nearby. His foot slipped on the rug. He fell sideways, hitting his shoulder and striking his head lightly on the side table. I wasn't even that hurt, he later told me. Just embarrassed. But that night, everything changed. Walter woke up confused. His right arm was numb. He couldn't form a full sentence. At the ER, we found a clot in his left middle cerebral artery, the type that forms after inflammation or vascular trauma. He hadn't hit hard enough to cause a brain bleed, but his fall had created just enough physical stress for a clot to form and travel to the brain. The stroke affected his speech, memory, and ability to use his dominant hand. Walter was lucky. He got treatment fast, but he now has a speech therapist and needs help dressing each morning. He told me he'd give anything to go back and do that same balance exercise, just while holding on to a chair. So here's the truth. Balance training is essential for seniors, but it must be done safely, though, always near a stable surface, with supervision if needed, and never on unstable floors or in socks. If you're unsure, start with seated core movements or heel-to-toe walking next to a wall. The goal is strength and stability, not risk and regret. Because it's not just a fall you need to fear, it's what the fall triggers inside your body that you may never see coming. A stroke may not happen the day you hit the floor. It may come silently that night, while you sleep, after the clot has formed and your brain can no longer defend itself. And now, after walking through 9 well-meaning exercises that may be putting your brain in danger, you might be wondering, what can I do instead? What's safe? What truly protects my brain, my balance, and my independence without risk? In the final reflection, I'll walk you through the truth about exercise and aging and show you how movement, when done wisely, can be your greatest ally in keeping your brain sharp and your life your own. Final reflection: the truth about movement, aging, and protecting your brain. If you've made it this far, I want to begin by saying something from the heart. You care. You care enough about your health, your future, and the people who love you to sit with uncomfortable truths. And that takes strength, the kind of strength that doesn't come from lifting weights or mastering yoga poses. It comes from wisdom, earned over decades, and from the courage to change course when the road you've trusted suddenly shifts beneath your feet. We've walked through 9 everyday exercises, things you've likely done with the best intentions. And we've seen how each, under the wrong conditions, can become dangerous. From neck rolls and toe touches to high intensity workouts and balance drills, each of these movements can be healthy, but only when matched carefully with the reality of your aging body. And the truth is this: aging changes everything. Your blood vessels are no longer as elastic. Your heart doesn't respond as quickly to changes in position. Your brain becomes more sensitive to drops in oxygen, sugar spikes, dehydration, and inflammation. What used to be harmless in your 40s can, at 70 or 80, quietly set the stage for a blood clot, a vessel rupture, or a brain bleed. And once a stroke occurs, nothing is ever quite the same. As a neurologist, I've seen this too often. Patients who were active, careful, and well-meaning, who followed routines they thought were safe, walk into my office one week and can't speak the next. I've looked into the eyes of spouses who never expected to become full-time caregivers. I've watched strong men and women relearn how to feed themselves, button a shirt, or remember their grandchildren's names. And I've heard the same phrase over and over again. I didn't know. I thought I was doing the right thing. That's why I'm here. Not to scare you, but to help you see what's hidden beneath the surface. Because knowledge, not fear, is what keeps us alive, alert, and independent. So now the question becomes, if these exercises are risky, what can I safely do? How do I move in a way that protects my brain instead of putting it in harm's way? Let's start with the first and most important principle. Movement is not the enemy. Uninformed movement is. You don't need to stop exercising. You need to exercise differently with intention, awareness, and respect for the reality of your body today. You are not fragile, but you are different, and your movement should reflect that. What safe movement looks like after 60. 1. Warm up first. Always. Never begin a workout or even a morning stretch without warming up. Walk in place for 5-10 minutes. Roll your shoulders gently. Breathe deeply. This wakes up your circulation and prepares your body for safe movement. 2. Use support when needed, and don't apologize for it. Balance exercises should always be done near a wall, chair, or railing. Holding on isn't weakness, it's wisdom. The goal isn't to prove you can do it alone. The goal is to stay upright and safe. 3. Favor steady, rhythmic movement over intensity. Walking, Tai Chi, water aerobics, or light resistance band training all provide excellent benefits without dangerous spikes in heart rate or blood pressure. Your brain thrives on consistency, not shock. 4. Hydrate, not just after, but before. Dehydration thickens your blood and stresses your brain's blood vessels. Drink water first thing in the morning and before any physical activity, even stretching. 5. Combine movement with breath. Holding your breath while lifting or straining increases internal pressure and can destabilize vessels. Every movement should include a conscious breath, in through the nose, out through the mouth. 6. Stretch after activity, not before. Static stretching is safest when your body is warm. Save long-held stretches for after your walk or workout. Focus on gentle range of motion work first. 7. Listen to the subtle warnings. Dizziness, fogginess, nausea, chest pressure, or sudden fatigue are not just aging. They're whispers from your brain telling you that something inside isn't right. Don't ignore them. Sit, breathe, hydrate, and seek help if they persist. 8. Move in the morning, not late at night. Blood circulation slows at night. Late day exertion can lead to delayed blood pressure crashes or clotting. Aim for morning or midday when your body is most alert and responsive. 9. Personalize your routine with your doctor. Medications, past health history, and vascular conditions vary. What works for one senior may be dangerous for another. Always review your exercise plan with your physician, especially if you're on blood thinners, diuretics, or have had any history of stroke or TIA. You still hold the pen. This chapter of life isn't about limitation, it's about precision, about knowing your body better than ever and making choices that reflect your decades of experience. You've survived loss, challenge, and change. You've built families, careers, and communities. You've earned the right to live your final chapters on your own terms, but that means guarding your brain like the treasure it is. Because one small movement done at the wrong time or without enough support can unravel everything you've worked so hard to protect. But the right movements, chosen wisely, performed safely, can give you more years of clarity, mobility, and freedom. So as you step into your next walk, your next stretch, your next effort to stay healthy, take this truth with you. It's not just how you move. It's how you protect the brain that allows you to move at all. Make every step count, not just toward strength, but toward safety. Not just toward fitness, but toward freedom, because your brain is still listening, and it's counting on you to move with care. And now, I'd love to hear from you. What part of this journey spoke to you most? What change are you ready to make, starting today, to protect your health and your future? Let's walk this wiser path together. Your brain deserves it. You deserve it. These lessons are meant to inspire you to live fully and authentically. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Take a moment to reflect and share one thing you've learned and plan to apply in your own life. Let's support each other on this journey toward embracing these truths. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a comment with 1. If not, feel free to comment with 0. Your feedback means a lot to us. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content like this. Thank you for watching, and here's to living life on your own terms.